Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarvaloka Mangalam Om Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarva Dharma Sarupene Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Yate Namaha Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatgurum Parapadme Tayostritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankarachara Majamam Ashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Reva Param Brahman Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Bhadrakali Namo Nityam Saraswati Namo Namaha Veda Viranga Vedanta Vijastana Evacha Sri Ganesha Sharada Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Jai Ma. Continuing our discussions on the Devi Gita from the Shrimad Devi Bhagavatam. The translation we're using, of course, is from C. Mackenzie Brown. I will be pulling apart the verses a little bit. And so after a very long time, after many months of, actually the gods did austerity for thousands of years. We did austerities. You're having to listen to my very slow word by word talk, your austerity, to finally have a vision of the Divine Mother. She appeared first as a vision of light, representing the Supreme Brahman, beyond name, beyond form, or beyond comprehension, we could probably say. And then that form took the form, that light that was like shown like 10,000 suns and cooling like 10,000 moons, like that. Eventually took on the shape or the form of a woman, of a goddess, and that goddess is Bhuvaneshwari. So let's jump into a little bit where our verses are, what verse we're on here. So jumping back a little bit, suddenly on the 9th day, just because there's so many verses describing, so we're going to just back up a little bit and see where we are. Suddenly on the 9th day, on Navami, in the month of Chaitra, that's during Navaratri, on a Friday, that lustrous power revealed in the scriptures appeared before the gods. Praised on all sides by the 4 Vedas incarnate, it blazed like 10 million suns, it soothes like 10 million moons, flashing like 10 million streaks of lightning tinged with red. That supreme lustrous power shone forth, compassed above, across, and in the middle. Without beginning or end, it had no body, nor hands, nor limbs. It did not have a woman's form, a man's form, nor the two combined. That dazzling brilliance blinded the eyes of the gods, O king. And when again their vision returned, the gods beheld, and that's what we're discussing, what they beheld, right? That light appearing now in the form of a woman, charming and delightful. She was exceedingly beautiful of limb, a maiden in the freshness of youth. And I mentioned last week, with these verses, I'm going to be including various paintings and images of Bhuvaneshwari, because not all of us, we may have our favorite goddesses, Kali or Lakshmi or Durga or Lalita, like this. Usually Bhuvaneshwari in a lot of, I mean, I know most of us aren't necessarily per se Bhuvaneshwari devotees. So to get accustomed to her image and her iconography and image, have a feeling of what she's like, what she looks like, right? Of course, these verses are going to describe what she looks like. That's where we are. But I'm include some pictures. So pictures won't always match the verses perfectly, just to tune us to her form. That light appeared now in the form of a woman, charming and delightful. She was exceedingly beautiful of limb, a maiden in the freshness of youth. And this is the verse that we read last week. We focused on last week. Her full upraised breast put to shame the swelling buds of lotuses. Her girdle and anklets jingled with clusters of tinkling bells. And we spent a little bit of time introducing or discussing kind of the uniqueness of Sanskrit poetics, right? And it's a lot of it is based upon comparing something with something else that's considered very beautiful, right? And so this is an example that, you know, her upraised breath put to shame the swelling buds of lotuses. Of course, they're comparing her breast to lotuses, right? But budding lotuses. So we mentioned last week, this is the idea of the youth, that she's at the prime of youth. This is the goddess at her most, of course, this is a culturally specific image of beauty, of course, right? Everybody has the same idea of beauty, but especially in Sanskrit poetics like that, these are the symbols of the height of beauty and desirableness in feminine desirableness, idealized especially in the classical texts, right? And then also a lot of things are compared to other things. So it's the breasts are compared to lotus, but then there's this kind of interesting idea that they're competing, right? That in the competition between budding lotuses and her upraised breast, the lotuses are put to shame. They're embarrassed. Their beauty is nothing compared, right? And I think thinking a little bit about some of the poetic resonances here. And that's not poetry, and Sanskrit poetry especially is not my specialty. So please forgive me. I'm not the ideal person for this, but I think part of it is also that a budding lotus, right, is just about to bloom, right? But when it blooms, it lasts a day and then it fades, right? So even though a youthful lotus is about to bloom, show its beauty, but it's even at its greatest, or it's at just the moment before its greatness of blooming, it fades. Beauty is short last. Even something so beautiful as a lotus, which we've mentioned represents eternality and all the different things that lotuses represent in Sanskrit poetics, right? Still, it's still temporary. It's in a certain sense, right? But Ma is the goddess being described actually, although in that moment of youth is an eternal youth, right? She is permanent, right? So maybe that's part of the play of why the lotus is embarrassed, knowing that the lotus is fading, but Ma is ever in that perfect state, right? We talked about, and then we moved into discussing some of her jewelry, right, and her adornments, right? And a lot of these verses will be describing her beauty, not just her physical beauty, right? And so it's difficult to say her physical beauty because Ma is not physical, right? But she's iconographic, so describing her image, right? Her iconographic beauty, image of her rupa. Actually, the term rupa, which means form, also means beauty, right? Beautiful also. It's also going to be the beauty of her body, of her spirit, of her divine body, is also going to be connected, sometimes compared to, or but connected to adornment, and that's a very important aspect of Hindu iconography. Adornments, right? Deities are decorated. They wear things. They hold things, right? So a lot of the description is going to be describing what she's wearing, what she's holding, how she's dressed, right? So first it starts with her girdle, which is her waistband, or girdle, which is made of little tinkling bells, right? As well as her anklets. We spent a lot of time last week talking about anklets. I have a picture here I showed briefly last week of a lotus about to bloom and then a full bloom lotus, right? And there's another picture here on the far, right here. I don't know if you can see my point. This is a bimba fruit. And bimba is going to be very strongly used. It's very common in poetics and very common in describing especially goddesses. Like also Krishna, like whenever you're describing her red lips, or Krishna's red lips, or Krishna's red hands, or Ma's red hands, or her red feet, they're very often described here. The word for red is almost bimba, which is this color of a vibrant, this is maybe not the best example, it's what I found online, right? Bimba has various shades according to its ripeness, right? So this term bimba is going to be used to describe the color of her lips and different things like this, and her eyes and like this. But it's also, the shape is also important, right? Just like her breasts are connected to lotuses. So there's going to be other body parts that are described bimba shape. So just so you know, because we don't grow up with bimba fruit, right? But bimba is a very known fruit, and everything is described bimba-like. So I put the picture here just so you'd understand. We can get a little idea of some of the poetic allusions that are going to be used. So this is the verse we're on today. Let me find my verse here so I can read it better. kanakāṇgadā-keyūra-graiveyaka-vibhūṣitām. So this term here, vibhūṣitām, is an important term, right? Vibhūṣana or vibhūṣitām is adornment or adorned, right? And so both in many, maybe even if you've heard certain bhajans, it will just sometimes a bhajan will describe as naga vibhūṣana, right? For Shiva. Shiva is adorned or decorated or wearing serpents, right? Or something like this. So it's a very common word, even in bhajans like that the Lord is wearing, or the god is decorated with certain types of jewelry, or even there's some verses describe Ma's garland of heads as her vibhūṣana or vibhūṣita, her decoration, right? So what are her decorations here? Let's see. Kanakāṇgadā, right? This kanaka is a term for one of the words for gold. So this refers to gold, specifically to bracelets. So I'm wearing a bracelet, right? Mine is not gold, right? This is a copper bracelet, right? So bracelets, she's wearing bracelets. If you look at even pictures of poster art of Kali, which are very stark images sometimes, right? Sometimes you see them all decorated, but usually Ma is seen with like severed heads, and her girdle is made of severed hands, not tinkling little bells, right? But still, you'll see her with golden bracelets, with armlets very often, right? So gold is important, and bracelets are very important, right? Adorned with bracelets. And then keyūra means armlets. These are like things that go here or above the elbow, or above, just below the armpit, almost like sometimes they're seen almost like they can be seen a little bit like armor sometimes, that type of thing that protects one, wearing these big things, but they're also great signs of beauty, right? So she's wearing bracelets, she's wearing armlets, and then Graiveyaka is necklace, right? So his order is different in the sentence, but she's wearing, here it says necklaces, armlets, and bracelets. It actually is bracelets, armlets, and necklaces, right? Or necklace was of gold, right? And then second part of the verse, anargya mani sambhinha naglbana-virājitām. So anargya is priceless. So here it translates as priceless gem. So let's read his translation first. Her throat resplendent with a chain of priceless gems. She was adorned with necklaces, armlets, and bracelets of gold. Her throat resplendent with a chain of priceless gems. So anargya means priceless. Money, the word money there is gemstone or jewel of the money, right? Her theme there's a triple theme of the Devi Bhagavatam in general. That the supreme goddess is the supreme Brahman itself and the self of all. She is also and she's a goddess herself. She's manifest as a universe, right? And she exists eternally in this form as Bhuvaneshwari in her heaven world, just like Vishnu lives in Vaikuntha, and Shiva abides eternally in Kailash, right? So Devi's, Bhuvaneshwari's supreme world is called Manidweep, right? The island of gems, the island of jewels. That same idea of jewels is there, right? And then actually, Swami Bhajanananda was working on trying to, because this verse has very strange language, maybe not strange language, unfamiliar language, right? Sambhina gala banda. Sambhina is something like joined or tight, solid, something like this. And then galabanda is tied around the neck, galabanda. So it's describing that it's a way of describing necklaces or a choker, perhaps, maybe like, she had around her neck gems, necklace of gems. So it's a lot of description of her necklace. Of course, it's a short description. I mean, I may be giving it too much time, right? But there is a reason for it. What is all this focus of jewelry? What's it for, right? In general, right? For God, when describing goddesses, or also I think we think of it, okay, Bhuvaneshwari is like the queen of the universe, right? The empress of the universe, right? So we can think of her with the idea of kings and queens, that of royal power. Along with royal power comes royal richness, right? A monarch is also the one who controls all wealth of the kingdom, at least symbolically, if not actually, right? So lavish when you know, in high ritual events, right? Even, you know, even now when they, you know, even presidents and things like that dress very nicely when they're in public. But you know, you see even the Queen of England or something like that on an important occasion, they'll be wearing jewels or crowns, right? Very they're the most expensive jewels and gems, right? That are passed down often, right? So lavish and opulent adornments, ornamentation, right, represent or show sovereignty over wealth, beauty, and prosperity, right? And seeing a goddess covered in jewels, right, or wearing crowns, or wearing gold armlets and bracelets, right, is showing that she is the sovereign, right? That she is, and she is the possessor of course, if I'm wearing an expensive necklace, right, that means I have an expensive, I mean, that amount, at least that amount of wealth I have, right? So the images of gods and goddesses wearing jewelry, expensive jewelry, very valuable jewelry, showing that they possess all wealth, right? And by worshiping them, right, we also, I mean, if you're going to pray for wealth, pray for prosperity, pray for happiness, you pray to the one who is wealthy, prosperous, happy, right? The one who is abundance itself. We pray for abundance like this. So by worshiping adorned gods and goddesses, we benefit. We maybe it's slightly, I mean we could say it's wishful thinking, right? But it also maybe a little magical type of idea, a little bit sympathetic magic, a little bit, right? And sometimes if you go to a temple and there's no adornment on a statue, we think, oh, that the deity is not very living and cannot respond, right? We want to see the deity with alankara or with decoration. If you go to like, I'm just remembering various important temples we've been to. Like one of them is Ujjain and Mahakaleshwara, the beautiful temple in Ujjain, one of the Jyotirlingams of Lord Shiva of Bhairava, very incredible Mahakaleshwara Shiva. And you go early in the morning, it's a very, you know, like most of the day, the Shiva is just exposed, the Shiva lingam. You can go and you can bathe yourself. You can bathe this beautiful Shiva and you can touch him. You can pour your water and milk over him. Very, very nice. In the morning, it's quite something. They do a very elaborate worship, right? And it's everyone's extreme desire to go in the morning to see. This is a Mangalarati, limited seating, right? Thousands of people want to go and if people get in. And one of the things they do, it's called Bhashmarati, where they bathe him also in ash, right? Ash from the cremation ground. That he's the Lord of Death, or Mahakaleshwara. But they decorate him exquisitely, right? They create a crown, they create a face on him, they decorate him with various types of jewelry and crowns and turbans, and then they do called Darshanarati, when you see him in his mourning, whatever form he's presenting. It's quite something. And if you look up just online, you can look up, do a Google picture search on Ujjain Mahakal, right? And you can go picture, and see all these different images of his different face, you know, really incredible. To see him decorated something. But then as soon as that darshan, I mean, they spent an hour decorating him or more. right, and lavishly putting his jewels on, right, and his whatever his outfit is for the day, then they take it off, and then the rest of the day people are just pouring water on his head. So people see Shiva, but knowing to see him in his full decoration is considered very, very auspicious. I'm remembering another important connected to Shiva also, important darshan, Swami Ambikananda, myself, and we're I think Rampriyadas also, no, Rampriyadas wasn't there with us that time, but he at Mukambika. Mukambika is a temple, a goddess temple in South India, and it's really something. She is incredible. We were there for Shivaratri, that's why I'm remembering Shiva. And she has very beautiful jewelry, but there's one arati night, right, in the early evening, or in the evening once it's dark, they do an arati, and she has a distinctive gem. It's a very large emerald, right? And if you ever see paintings of her, little images of her, in order to show that it's Mukambika, you have to show that emerald. It's like her distinctive feature, but it's not on her all the time. It's not even, probably not even safe to have it on her all the time, because thieves will come or something. They probably keep that. I think they keep it in the safe, and then security brings it for this arati. But to see it, I mean, as they do the arati and they bring the light around her, you get blinded by the shine of this. I mean, it's probably, I mean, in my mind, it's this big, emerald, But to see it, they say, "Oh, did you see?" To have darshan at that moment is considered very auspicious. So auspicious darshan, and it confers auspiciousness. So that's true in temples, and so in the description, she's going to be showing herself as in this, with lavish jewelry. So it's beauty, opulence, royalty, prosperity, right? And seeing the deity in such a state, or having a vision of the deity with such a state, also confers beauty, opulence, prosperity, like that, right? I'm remembering a story at the LA, I keep forgetting what it is. It's not the gem show. It's the LA wholesale show. Remember, Samaji? We were trying to remember the name. I just lost the name. But in Los Angeles at the LA Convention Center, there's this big LA gift show, right? And it's different companies showing what they're selling. So we used to go when our gift shop, when we were more open and the gift shop was more active, we'd go once a year to look what we could buy, connections to make for our gift shop, on our line gift shop. And they had a nice section on Indian things and deities and things like that. We made some very good connections. And the area for jewelry, even costumey type jewelry, is probably 2/3 of the convention, right? It's 2/3 jewelry and 1/3 everything else, right? Everything else. And Gita Pravrajika Gita Prana, one from the Vedanta Society, used to do the shopping for the Vedanta Society's gift shop. And so she used to go, and she mentioned when she'd go into that, just for the fun of it, into the jewelry section, and to see the thousands and thousands and thousands of the immensity of the jewelry and how much it was being bought and sold, right? And of course we can think, oh, that's people were being manipulated, and it's all shallow and like that. But she saw something different. She said, we know from this that the Divine Mother must love jewelry, right? That we, her representatives, her manifestations, her children, right, are also love jewelry, because that's something there's so much love for it. I remember her comment is that we know Ma loves jewelry, and therefore it's important during pujas to decorate her, and she would arrange she'd make the image, the Kali image every year at the Vedanta Society when she was here. And she spent a lot of time making jewelry, buying jewelry. That's one of the reasons she'd go to the gift shop, remembering to buy costumey jewelry just so she should be decorated, knowing that Ma loves jewelry, proof we love jewelry type thing, kind of the idea behind that. Every deity has specific alankara or gems, right? And so, of course, this is now, so you see, she's now we know is being described with Bhuvaneshwari. So gold jewelry, gems, like tinkling bells. So these are a certain category of goddesses that have, or forms of the goddess, or category of goddesses that have this type of jewelry. Right, there'll be, if you read the Dhyan Mantra or the description of Ma Kali, for instance, she'll have different jewelry, right? She'll be described as having a girdle of severed arms, right? And wearing a necklace not of precious gems, but of severed heads or skulls, right? And a second is going to be earrings described. Her earrings are going to be different to Bhuvaneshwari's earrings, right? So if you see, for instance, an image of the goddess or a vision of the goddess, or even if somebody buys you somebody gifts you a framed poster of the goddess, and you're trying to figure out who is she, right? We can see, well, if she's wearing a severed heads, well, we know she's probably not Bhuvaneshwari. Bhuvaneshwari is described as having gems, right? So let's see which goddesses wear severed heads. It must be Kali or Chinnamasta or something like that, Or like if you see a goddess wearing, or a deity wearing ash and a snake, it's either Shiva or a form of Shiva or related to Shiva, like that, you can tell. So even just describing her so beautiful and so opulent, it lets you know that she's Bhuvaneshwari or that category of hyper benign goddesses. I think in our Hindu goddess class, we described it's a Western category, but it's not a bad way of thinking of two different types of goddesses. Some scholars have used the term breast goddesses and fang goddesses, right? You have the fierce goddesses like Kali, Chinnamasta, Dhumavati, like this, and then the benign goddesses like Bhuvaneshwari is in that list. Bhuvaneshwari, Lakshmi, Sodashi, Bhuvaneshwari, like this. Saraswati, these are what they call nurturing goddesses, right? So all this images we've shown are nurturing. Also, I think it's important that I have to say, be careful. We can think a little bit about the importance of gems, right? And in this verses, the gems aren't being specified, just that they're priceless. These are rare gems, right? But gems have also a iconographic meaning, right? And certain gems mean certain things. Also, gems are believed to have certain gems are believed to have, to be careful how I say it, right? Astrological benefits or astrological connections, right? If ruby is connected, for example, just to give an example, not my specialty, rubies is connected to the sun, right? Blue sapphire is connected to Saturn. Iron is also connected to Saturn. Yellow sapphire is connected to Jupiter, right? Like this, right? So diamond is connected to Venus, right? There's like this. Same different metals. So the fact that she's wearing gold has meaning. To those who read the image astrologically, it has meaning this way too, right? And also there's an idea that we find this actually even in some Vedic mantras describing the Vedic gods like Indra and Varuna, and that they're wearing gems, and those wear on their arms and wrists like that. And those gems in the verses described as they give them power, right? We would probably see it with a theological adjustment is they show their power, right? Now we may wear gems. I'm also wearing some astrological gems. You can see I have a few, we wear certain things also, right? Not because that they're expressing my power. We believe they have, maybe they have some benefit. We're hoping they have some benefit, astrological, other benefit. People wear things with that. But when the goddess wear them, it's not, at least with the development where theological development, it's not the goddess isn't getting her power from the gems. It's the gems are expressing her power, expressing her wealth, expressing her ability. And this idea that the things that we consider so important, power, control, rulership, health, prosperity, the things that everyone's after, the things that maybe even to some people is the highest possible goal of life, right? For her, those things are part of her, but she wears them. That means she's way more important than them, right? These are one of her ornaments, right? They're not, they decorate her, right? You think about that. The things that are so important, she wears as decoration, right? So as important as those things are, how much greater must the goddess be, the one who wears it? She's far superior to them, whatever those qualities are, right? Let's look at that.
Guruji?
Yes, tell me.
No, I'm just thinking what you just said, and it makes me think of the image of Ma Kali with the Mundamala, but where each munda, each head, represents a letter of a syllable of the Sanskrit alphabet,
Yeah.
which implies all sound
Yeah.
and all permeations. That idea that, of course, the universe that vibrates from those sounds.
Yeah.
So, and that's her necklace.
Yeah.
All sound and everything manifests. The entire universe is her necklace.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that also shows the idea that these decorations have layers of meaning, including extremely abstract meaning, like the garland of heads is actually a garland of letters or of syllables, right? You know, or the sounds of the Sanskrit alphabet, right? And therefore, and those syllables are also represent possible vibrations, right? Conceptualized in Sanskrit, right? So her neck, yeah, they decorate it, it's her jewelry, but they have profound meaning for the person who reads them that way. We mentioned last week that one of the important aspects of iconography, especially Hindu iconography, but it's true of religious iconography, all iconography in general, I think this is a quality of iconography, is that it's a type of language we talked about last week, right? And so if you know the language, or the more you know the language, the more that, like, even an English word, right, it will have, you know, if you look in the dictionary, it will have like 10 different meanings, right? And if you know all of them, right, sometimes, especially when sometimes you have to find out the meaning that is closest to how it's being used. But sometimes in poetry and in symbolism, sometimes a word will mean very different things. It will mean one thing and something totally different. So an example in a dictionary, it may be the primary meaning, and 10 definitions down the list, there'll be another meaning. And that's a good poet will use a word one way and mean something different. That's why we can kind of, just like, for instance, the severed heads is one thing, it means many things, right? And I think one of our talks on the Kali Svasanama, we spent a little bit of time on Ma's, the wearing of skulls and the wearing of heads, right? In Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism, and in Hinduism and tantric imagery, vast array of meaning if we know how to read it, right? Then you have to think how it's being used.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. What's the next verse? She was adorned with a necklace, armlets, and bracelets of gold, her throat resplendent with a chain of priceless gems. And this image is to show the image. This is, forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the artist. I like this artist. He does a lot of art. I think it's a he, actually. I'm pretty sure it's a he. Does a lot of art for the Himalayan Academy, which is a group in Hawaii that has that Shiva temple in Kauai, I think, that produces the Hinduism today. But they've developed, due to this artist, a certain style of art. So this is one of they did a series on a series of paintings on the Dash Mahavidyas in connection. This is one of them. If I remember, see if I can remember the name of the artist. It's there, I think, but I can't see it. So, okay, next verse 34. Tenu kantaka samrajan nila brahmara kuntalam. That's the first word. So, Tenu kantaka samrajan nila brahmara kuntalam. So this is going to be using a lot of, once again, poetic skill, right? The artist, the poet, or the goddess herself as she appears, or the person describing her is using a higher level of poetry than my dull poetic sense can interpret, right? But so we've been thinking a lot about this, trying to think how it's being described. The locks of her cheeks, shimmered like black bees, swarming on delicate Ketka blooms. Ketka blooms. I think I left an E out. Ketka blooms. Ketka blooms. So Ketki in common with Ketki, the Ketki flower is something not dissimilar to it looks a little bit like a jasmine, something like a jasmine, something a cross between like a jasmine flower and a champaka flower, something like this, right? And it's a very auspicious flower, and it's interesting because it places, just to give a little history of some of the ideas here. It has in the story, we've told the story, part of this series of classes also, the story of when Shiva appeared as an infinite pillar of light, right? An infinite Shiva lingam, right? Because the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, were arguing who was supreme, right? This is a theme in a lot of the texts, right? I think it is a theme of the disciples and the followers of the gods, but maybe even the gods themselves are arguing this. And of course, from a Shaivite perspective, Shiva, in order to humble them, becomes an infinite pillar. And this is considered, and this infinite pillar of light, considered the first manifestation of the Shiva lingam, is said to have appeared on Shivaratri. It's one of the things we celebrate on Shivaratri, the infinite pillar of light, which appeared at midnight. So that's why the most important moment for worshiping the Shiva lingam on Shivaratri is at proper midnight, at the solar midnight, between sunset and sunrise, usually around 12:30, 1 o'clock here in California. So Vishnu becomes, in order to find out how far down the Shiva lingam goes, the pillar of light goes, becomes a boar, becomes Varaha, the boar form, and digs, and and at a certain point he can't find the end, and he turns back around and I can't find the end of this light, right? Showing in story that even Vishnu cannot comprehend the immensity of Lord Shiva. This is from a Shaivite perspective. Lord Brahma jumps on a swan and flies up to find the top of the Shiva lingam, right? And he goes in the story for days or years or tens of millions of years, thousands of years, and can never find the top. But falling, he finds halfway, I can't say halfway up, he never finds the top. At a certain point, he sees a little flower, a Ketki flower, falling, that was on the top of the Shiva lingam, right? Falls down, he catches a flower, and he goes, "Oh, little flower, where are you coming from?" "I'm coming from the top of the Shiva lingam." If I get the story right. Goes, "Great." And so he takes the flower and comes back down, and they all meet again. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are now meeting, and Brahma says, "I never found the base," right? And Vishnu said, "I dug and never found the base." Brahma says, "I went up and I found the top. And the proof is I got this flower from the top of Shiva's head," right? And the flower, not knowing what to do, just kind of didn't say anything. He didn't not wanting to embarrass, not wanting to upset Brahma, not knowing what to do, it just was quiet. And so in this version of the story, Shiva, because Brahma lied, Brahma used to have 5 heads. There's myriad stories of why Brahma now has 4 heads. But in this story, because Brahma lied, he cut off one of Brahma's heads. Shiva cut off one of Brahma's heads, right? So that's why Brahma only has 4 heads now, right? And to that flower, he says, "I also cursing you because you didn't tell the truth when he claimed this, that you should no longer be offered to me. You had a place on my head, right? But yet you didn't defend, or you didn't say the truth. Therefore, you should never be offered to me." So since that time, this is a forbidden flower to worship Shiva. You cannot worship Shiva with this flower. So knowing that this flower is significant and it's a very important part of the story, I myself cannot figure out why this is the flower being used. Why maybe something along like, oh, that this flower cannot comprehend Shiva's infinite, what to speak of Devi's. I have no idea if there's some meaning to that, but just to give you an idea of the flower. So the image is also very interesting. So you have to imagine the locks of her cheeks. This is the hair coming down, her side hair coming down, right? It's hanging down, right? Shimmered, right? So shiny, beautiful, and this is also an ideal of Indian beauty. Very shiny, deep black hair, right? So black hair, and so meaning describes to black bees, right? So if you have black bees, the Ketka flower is very delicate. They're little flowers, something like jasmine, like I said, right? But imagine it's these very delicate flowers, white flowers, being swarmed by black bees, not by black bees like I guess we call them bumblebees. But there's in the Indian bumblebee is a black bee. It's a big black bee, right? So imagine something so delicate being swarmed. They're very fragrant, also being swarmed by huge, big buzzing bees. And the idea of swarming bees is also considered extremely auspicious, right? That's another, you'll see that her face is swarmed by bees, or that's a very common image, right? So something delicate, beautiful flower, fragrant flower, covered, swarmed by black bees, by bumblebees, right? And those black bees are like, because they're swarming, they're shimmering. So that is the aesthetic description of the black hair hanging from her face, right? So you can see this is using a poetic language that we're not so accustomed to. It's not our style, but to get you an idea of it. Actually, it says, but actually he says Nila Brahmara, he has black bees, right? But Nila means blue, right? So the bees are often there's a song by Komalakanta or Ramprasad that the black bee of my mind is attracted to the blue lotus flower of Mother Kali's feet. See how black is made black. One was black. So black and blue are almost the same color in this scheme. The Ma is Shama. She's black, she's blue, she's midnight blue. So there's playing with colors like that. So the locks of her cheek shimmered like black bees swarming on a delicate Ketaka blooms. Then nitamba-bimba-subhagāṃ romarāji-virājitām. Second half of the verse here. Let's see. So nitamba-bimba. Here we go. Remember that fruit? I showed you a picture of the Bimba fruit. This is describing her Bimba-like lips. All right. This is an example. No. Yeah. Sorry, not Bimba-like lips. Her Bimba-shaped hips. Right. Nitamba-bimba means having Bimba fruit shaped hips. So this is a way of showing round hips, right? And again, this is aesthetic. This is a view, a culturally specific form of beauty, but it has more than just a cultural thing of beauty, a shapely form, right? It represents again motherhood, or potential for motherhood, maternal qualities, right? But it's both a symbol of motherhood, of the potential for motherhood, as well as an aesthetic or an erotic quality, something that's very beautiful, right? Nitamba-bimba-subhagāṃ. Subhagāṃ means beautiful or charming. So what's being described? Her Bimba-shaped hips, right? Has a very beautiful or charming, attractive, pleasing, and this is also, it says, is a romarāji-virājitām. Romarāji means a line of hair. So this is actually, this is of course we constantly, in modern times especially, are changing. We change our hairstyles, and we shave differently, and all this type of what's considered beautiful and attractive is changing continuously. But in this genre, goddesses are often described as having a midriff, a line of down or hair down the stomach, down there, and therefore accentuating the hips, right? So these are erotic descriptions, as well as motherly and maternal descriptions, right? So an exquisite line of down on her midriff enhanced the charm of her shapely hips, right? So this the charm could be the midriff is enhancing the charm of her hips, or the midriff hair, line of down is itself charming on her bimba shaped hips. And I think we can get to this verse today. Let me drink a last little bit of coffee here. Again, just remind ourselves that all these images, all these qualities or aspects of her form are meant to convey feminine beauty, sensuality, and fertility, right? That's a describing of her beauty, right? And as well as then her adornments, also to accentuate these points, right? And also show power, wealth, prestige, prosperity, like this. So these are some of the language we're using for this category of goddess, Bhuvaneshwari especially. So let's see here. I like this image of Bhuvaneshwari. It's a very classic, beautiful image. I love this lotus that she's sitting on also, I'm using this image. I'm posting some of these talks, or all these talks eventually, bit by bit, on the podcast. And it turned out I could post videos on the podcast. So now we're posting the video. So this is when you see this, the video icon, it will be this image. I'm using this image of the classic, beautiful image of Bhuvaneshwari. Right, and you can see if we blow up, she's having, so you can see, this is this particular version. Her bracelets aren't just this type of bracelets. They're like that more almost armor-like bracelets I mentioned, bracelets, armlets, you can see, anklets, necklace, precious gems, necklace. You can see some of the description, right? Her hair coming down on the side, you can see some of being described here. Kapura Sakalam Mishra Tambulam Puritananam. So she is chewing on tambula mixed with bits of mint camphor. This is what the translation gives, right? I put mint in parentheses, or in in brackets, or like this, I guess parentheses, because the word mint I don't find in the original, right? We're leaving because I don't want to change C. Mackenzie Brown's translation. I want to keep it intact, right? But I don't see the word mint. It's not, I don't see it. It's not, as far as I tell, it's not there, right? She's chewing on tambula mixed with, actually the word is mishra tambula. Mishra means mixed, right? So it means spiced. And so tambula, what is tambula? Tambula is betel leaf or betel nut. And betel, betel leaf, pan. I guess the way we in common Hindi, Bengali language, we say pan, right? And but in Sanskrit, when I'm offering pan in puja, idam tambulam, with this tambula, with this offering of right? The word here for is also tambula. And it's a mixture. It's something like, it's like almost like chewing tobacco. It's some spices that you chew, often mixed with tobacco in popular use. It's a leaf. The leaf itself is very spicy, right, and very flavorful, almost peppery, almost very flavorful. You take the leaf. It's a very distinct shaped leaf. Also, it looks like a like the clover, not the, what is it? This a spade in the card, you know, the in deck of cards, the spade type of, it has that type of shape, the leaf. And then the nut itself is a nut, is also very flavorful and a bit stimulating. It's a stimulant. I can't say an intoxicant, it's not that level, but it, when you take it, when you eat it, you know, you feel there, it's a little addicting because of the stimulating quality. One time, actually, at our ashram, somebody brought some villagers came to the mela, and they brought beetle fruit still on the vine, right? Still the fruit, the unripened fruit, not the ripened fruit we use to make this. And Guruji took it, and and he chewed a little bit, and then he said, "How is it, Guruji?" And he kind of leaned back and says, like, my head's spinning a little bit. I've never like, this is stronger than I expected, because when we take it as an after dinner digestive, it's not terribly stimulating, or it doesn't give too much of a high effect. But I guess raw like that, right off the plant, green, not prepared, it's stronger than. So it's a slight stimulant, and it's mixed usually with different spices. That's the mishra, mixed with spices like clove and cardamom, and often they put lime paste, and the lime paste in it, you grind you cut the betel nut, right, and you put it inside of a betel leaf, and you put the betel nut, you put the spices, you put the lime paste, and the lime paste acts as it activates the dynamic quality of the betel nut. Very common, people will also add some tobacco and like chewing tobacco into it. And what I hear, I've had betel nut many times, but I've never had it with tobacco. I hear the combination tobacco accentuates its slightly buzzy type of quality, right? Of the preparation, right? And then it's folded up in a little way, and then usually a very attractive. They use not a cardamom,
Clove.
clove. Thank you. A clove stick to kind of
To sew it.
Like to sew the leaf shut, right? And then so this is the very auspicious. The tambalam is a very auspicious offering, right? It's a divine offering. Proof of it, when the goddess appeared to the gods in ancient times on Mount Kailash, or the highest mountain, right? She was chewing it, right? So this is a sign whenever the goddess appears, very often when the goddess appears, she's chewing tambalam. And that combination, especially when the lime paste is added to the tambalam, it gives it it also, not only it kicks the flavor in, or the effect in, it also changes the color, right? It makes it very red. Although the nut itself and the leaf is not red, none of the ingredients are red. When you add the lime paste, it makes it very red. And therefore, people who chew, you see them. If any of you have been any length of time in India, it's actually kind of gross, I think. With I don't chewing. People are chewing. Usually, men are chewing while they're talking to you. They're chewing, and their lips are red, stained, and they spit it somewhere. It's a kind of gross. People spit dirty things everywhere when they're talking. It spits on you. It's kind of it's a culturally specific thing that I'm not terribly excited about when people are chewing tambalam, right? But it stains your lips red, right? And so that's another thing. She has red stained lips. Her lips are red from the last verse because her bimba, or some places will describe her lips like bimba fruit, right? Her lips will be, by saying that she's chewing tambalam, it probably also means that her lips are also red from tambalam. The mixture dyes your lips red. Many, maybe you have or seen little statues of Radha and Krishna, right? Very common. There's different poses. Krishna you usually see holding the flute. That's common, right? Radha has different poses. One of the poses, she's doing this with one hand, right? And so that she's giving blessings or boons like that. But usually she's holding something like this. What she's holding is a tambalam mixture. the leaf with everything. She's holding it to Krishna because she would feed this to Krishna. Krishna in the stories was very fond of tambulam, and Radharani and the gopis would make it for Krishna, right? And so the Devi appears as tambulam. Sri Ramakrishna liked tambulam, right? Holy Mother, we read in the Gospel of Holy Mother and the stories of Holy Mother that she spent a lot of time every day, on her off time, preparing betel leaf rolls. That's another way we call them, betel leaf rolls, right? Tambulam, right? So that she'd have them. So after dinner, she'd give them to her disciples and to the guest, right? And so it was very he's very loving that, Holy Mother we consider to be the guru and to be the goddess herself, right? Like a mother, like a housewife, like a host was making tambulam for her guests, which were actually her disciples and worshipers, right? But the Divine Mother herself was doing this very intimate and motherly act of making tambulam for the devotees. And so learned occasionally when it's offered, I'll eat it, right? But it's definitely an acquired taste. Not my favorite. It wasn't my favorite taste, but I forced myself in the early years to occasionally have when it's offered too, because thinking Holy Mother made this. She made it. Hopefully we're back on. Okay. Sorry, everything froze on our side. Hope it didn't affect anything too badly. So let's move over here. So I don't know how much you heard before the program froze or the website froze. But whenever I eat tambulam and take tambulam, I'm thinking of Holy Mother, thinking of Sri Ramakrishna. Also, not only of Kali, of Sodashi, of Bhuvaneshwari, of Krishna, of Rama, they're all seen eating tambulam and with lips stained red from tambulam. In the Devi Loka, the highest divine realm of Devi Loka, in the Manidvip, it's described, right, that because she's chewing tambulam, you usually don't swallow the whole thing. Often there's some left over as you spit it out, right? So you need a spittoon, right? And so again, to show the supremacy of Devi, right, in the Devi Bhagavatam, in the last few chapters of Devi Bhagavatam, the scene is there, where the spittoon of the Devi is Indra, right? So Indra, who is the king of the gods, the highest like that, but showing that she's far superior, that her spittoon is Lord Indra, right? But it also means actually that just think of how it's meant to show how low Indra is in comparison. But let's not take it that way. Let's think of Indra as the highest god, how supremely high Devi is, if that Indra, who's the highest we can conceptualize, is her spittoon, how much higher she is, right? So betel is the betel leaf mixture, the tambulam, right, is a symbol of everything's means something here, right? It's a symbol of freshness and prosperity, right? Once again, these her symbols, all of her symbols, that of freshness of youth, blooming youth, gems, jewels, gold, prosperity, like this, right? According to the Skanda Purana, right, betel leaf was attained by the gods during the churning of the ocean, in the churning of the cosmic ocean, when all the different gems, all the different treasures came out, and eventually the Amrita came out. There's different lists and number of things, and different number of things that have come out, and different lists of those things in different texts. In the Skanda Purana, betel is one of the auspicious things that came out of the causal ocean, right? The main reason it's used in pujas is that we believe that different deities reside in the betel leaf. So this is important too, that we offer it in puja. It's mentioned in the scriptures that we offer it in puja. Example of this. I'll just get a picture of it, just how significant it is. Indra is said to be present in the top portion of the leaf, right? Saraswati, goddess Saraswati resides in the center part of the leaf, right? Lakshmi resides in the lower tip of the leaf, right? Jeshta Lakshmi, one of the forms of Lakshmi, resides in the part that connects the betel leaf to the stem, right? Lord Vishnu resides inside the leaf. Lord Shiva and Kamadev, the god of wealth, right, resides on the outside of the leaf. Goddess Parvati and Mangala Devi, right, live on the left side. Mother Earth or Bhuvanesh and exists on the right side of the leaf, right? And Lord Suryanarayana is there throughout the leaf, right? So this is just a description in Skanda Purana, right? But so that shows you it's used in puja like this, right? It's considered to be antiseptic, to purify anything. You add it to water, it kills it. It probably actually does kill germs. I think it is antiseptic, but it kills, it purifies anything. But think if that leaf has Indra and Shiva and Vishnu and Lakshmi and Saraswati and Mangala Devi and Parvati and Bhu Devi, the earth, all in the leaf, right? If you think of all that meaning, all that significance, that is mixed with camphor, mixed with spices, and offered to Ma to refreshen her breath, right? Which again is to think how it's when you think of how important it is, mythologically or spiritually important, this item is, and then think of what it means for her to chew it, right? You know, this is something, the most important, the highest possible deities we can imagine are just for her to freshen her mouth, right? To show her glory, right? Actually, she chews it up and spits it out. And maybe we could even think further than that, but we won't meditate too much along those lines, right? Also, just a little, just for fullness of contemplation, when at the end of a puja, when I go to people's homes to do puja, for instance, and at the end they want to give me dakshina, they give an honorary gift to the priest, right? They'll often, you know, they'll take the money and a piece of fruit, like a flower, like that, and they'll put it inside of a betel leaf, right? And they hand it in a betel leaf. That's a very common thing, right? Because the betel leaf is considered to be all those things, all those auspicious things, right? Right. And also when we worship the goddess in a pot, in the kalasham, we often use mango leaves or different types of leaves in the mouth of the pot. But the scriptures describe that if you don't have mango leaves or other leaves, a very good choice is betel leaves also. And that's a very common thing. When I do home pujas, usually the family will go to the Indian store and buy fresh betel leaves, and I'll put them, because it's said to purify the water and all gods and goddesses. Let's see what else the verse says here. Kanakāṇgadā-keyūra-graiveyaka-vibhūṣitām bhujam. So there's I'll read the translation. Pendant earrings of shining gold graced her lotus face. Again, just like her breasts are lotus-like or put to shame the lotus, here her face is described as a lotus, right? Her lotus-like, we could put maybe lotus-like face, right, in place of lotus face, right? So, and sorry, let me find my notes here. So there's a play, just like when we were talking about her tinkling anklets and waist belt, right? And the sound, there's a sound, a play, even the words used are also maybe alliterative. That the word is that it has a sound quality to it. It has a quality to it. So I think here also there's a quality of dingling earrings, right? So the word, words are there, but the connection of the words have a rhymey and musical quality to them, right? Of shimmering and tinkling and swaying like this, right? So kanaka, it means golden. Kanat also means to shine. That's where the word golden probably comes from. Gold shine. So it's shining gold, but it's like it's using the same word in a kind of rhymey thing. And then tanaka, tatanka, tantaka, tanka. My tongue's not doing it. Means earring, right? And vikanta means beautiful. So it's also tanaka, tatanka, viktanka. It has a rhyme quality to it. Kanaka has a rhyme to it. Tatanka, vitanka. So her shining golden earrings are her and her earrings are beautiful earrings. Her beautiful earrings are shining gold with that rhymey quality that has the idea of kind of shimmering, I believe, right? One of the things.
Where did he go?
Far, far away. We don't know.
I went and put on some adornment.
I've got some too. We're not. So who's going to take over the lecture?
Those are some big sandals to fill.
Elijah, has your power returned to your home?
It has, yeah.
Okay.
It happened at the same time that their Wi-Fi was going out.
Yeah. All right.
That's
Very well.
Yeah.
Well, maybe somebody can say the closing prayer.
Jai Shri Guru Maharaji ki.
We can all do a little part.
He's back.
Swamiji, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know. This hasn't happened in a very long time. We spent a lot of money fixing our internet. Anyways, we'll see. We have to maybe reboot. I only have a few more things to say. This probably still happen, but let's see. Back to our verse here.
We were all deciding who was going to do the closing prayer.
So sorry. So pendant earrings, I think, grace her face, right? Her face is like a lotus. Now here, probably lotus means blooming, right? It means it's so beautiful, it's so fresh, so all that quality of a lotus, right? A lotus-like face, right? And so these beautiful earrings that are gracing her lotus-like face, earrings are just like gems and bracelets and necklaces are important. Earrings are also an important part of Indian culture, right? And very, very important part. And goddesses and gods and goddesses wear earrings. Even humans wear earrings. Most of you are wearing earrings as well, right? Even earrings. There's the Karnaveda Samskar. One of the traditional sacraments of Hindu culture is the piercing of the ears, and there's all kinds of meaning for ear piercing, right? And it's still done. It's less done for men than it's for women in India now, right? At one time, it was very common for both boys and girls at a very young age, even infants, if not at infants, at least by young, 10, 12 years old, but usually done at, within 6 months old, right? The ears would be pierced. And the belief is that piercing into the ears has a health benefit. And there's believed to be nadis and things in the things that piercing has an effect, believed to have a health effect, right? Like this, right? But also earrings have all kinds of meaning. You can see, like, I'm wearing earrings, right? And most of some Ambikananda wears earrings. And so we're in the olden days, right? Earrings were one of the signs of a monk. One of the either king. You see some pictures of Buddha where he has long lobes because he wore very heavy gold earrings as a prince. And when he became an ascetic, he took off in his sect, he took off his earrings, and leaving, when you have big heavy earrings that also probably like plug type earrings, that when they're taken off, then and then you'd have these long loops. So it's a sign, his long drooping ears are a sign that he was once a prince who had wealthy, expensive earrings that were renounced, and he took them off, and therefore he had that thing. Some orders of monks also wearing earrings as part of the lingam, part of the signs of a monk, right? So that's why we're wearing earrings. Although it's become less common in many sects. Some of the Shaivite sects still are very strict on them. So the Devi wears gold, beautiful pendant, shimmering, swinging, golden, beautiful earrings, right? Right. In the Devi Bhagavatam, at the end, when Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva go to her highest heaven, the Manidvip, and they see her sitting on a golden throne on a giant pulsating Sri Yantra, and they themselves look down, and they're no longer Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They're the little girls. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, little young girls, right? Because in that highest realm, there's no masculinity. This is a highly Shakta perspective, right? Everyone's actually essentially female, right? Because we're all part of Devi's Shakti and power, right? So what happens? They go to her, and in that version, they're also describing very similar what she's dressed, what she's wearing, very similar to this, the same text that this is coming from, right? But then it has a little detail of her earrings. Her earrings are Sri Yantras. So her earrings are little dangling Sri Yantras. So we can imagine what that means, right? Sometimes you'll see her description as wearing one earring of a little sun and the other earring a moon, sun and moon. Obviously having, perhaps, obviously, I believe, likely having Ida Pingala type of meaning, sun and moon, that she is Sushumna. Also, the fact that she wears sun and moon means either the two great lights, sun, moon, and what is she then? She's fire, the third great light. When you don't have sun and moon, you have fire. And sun and moon get their power because of fire, right? But you look at, so Devi, Kali, she has earrings too. What are her earrings? Her earrings are corpse embryos, right? So that's a little heavier than we can think, but that also has meaning. Those who know the language of it, we know it has some meaning. We've had a class on her corpse earrings before, but showing that she's birth and death. That's one of the meanings of the corpse earring, because anyways, this is not a class. I don't want to get, I can easily start talking about Kali's imagery, which is what I want to do ultimately, but so we'll leave it at that. There's talking about of earrings of monks. There's a sect where the earring is very distinctive, the Nath yogis, and maybe you've seen them. And actually, a lot of I can't say modern understandings of yoga, but the original understanding of Hatha yoga and pranayama and like that is primarily coming from the Nath yogis. There's one sect, and they're believed to have a lot of yogic knowledge and a lot of like mystical powers. Siddhis, like that world is a Nath yogi world for sure. And one of their initiations, they get kundal diksha, they get a very distinct earring where their ear is sliced open with a knife at the time of initiation, and they're from the top down, right? And then placed in there is placed a solid ring, right? Sometime gold, sometime bone, sometime ivory, sometime gem, some sort of a stone like that. Nowadays, usually just some hygienic metal or something like that, right? If it's gold, it'll probably be much thinner, but sometimes they're really thick, as thick as my finger, They're put, and then the ear heals around the earring, right? So they're not just piercing their ears like I am and you are. They're cutting their, and that sect is one of the names is the sliced ear sect. There's a term for that, right? That they cut, right? Some don't survive it. It's such a painful initiation. It's very, like what happens actually, the ear is cut and then it's codified in the sun, in the summer sun, right? Where you have to have the sun shining through the hole, through the hole of that was ripped, and then it begins to heal, and then again it's opened, and then the earring is pushed in, and again it closes. And whenever the not yogis are very secretive, hatha yoga got away from them, and they become on every street corner and every strip mall, and we're all learned yoga somewhere like this, right? But a lot of their more esoteric practices have been kept secret. And I know we have a lot of not yogi friends that come to our ashram in India and Allahabad. I own one or two not yogi friends. I have a lot. We know not a lot of not yogis that come to the ashram. Our own friend group are very few not yogis, but they come for bandaras like that. But they say that there's a reason, there's astral flows and nadis in the body, that the cutting the ear gives a particular effect. And when we've asked them, and when they've been asked by others and scholars, why do you do it? They say there must be a reason. We have a reason, but you're not a not yogi and will never do it, and therefore you don't need to know the reason, right? They're getting some yogic benefit, but that benefit for the most part been kept secret, right? Although, I mean, there may be some places where interviews have happened and we can get some information, but I respect their secrecy, and so we won't go too much more into that. But they're an extreme example of earrings. Lord Shiva wears earrings. My earrings are kind of fashioned after Shiva's earrings. Usually for Lord Shiva, one earring is slightly smaller. We're just talking about deity iconography, right? So to show that Shiva and Shakti, right? Shakti wears a bigger earring than Shiva. So on the left side, he has a slightly bigger earring. On the right, he has a slightly smaller earring, right? Unfortunately, when I got my earrings made, I couldn't specify. I wanted one slightly smaller, but it was not available. Maybe I'll take it in India and have a jeweler cut one down a little bit, so one slightly smaller to represent Shiva's earrings also. So what do we have? Let's look at these verses. Her full upraised breast put to shame the swelling buds of the lotus. Her girdle and anklets jingled with clusters of tinkling bells. She was adorned with a necklace, armlets, and bracelets of gold. Her throat resplendent with a chain of precious gems. The locks of her cheeks shimmered with black bees swarming on delicate Ketka flowers. An exquisite line of down on her midriff enhanced the charm of her shapely hips, or her bimba-shaped hips specifically. She was chewing on tambula, a betel nut roll, mixed with bits of camphor or spices. Pendant earrings of shimmering gold graced her lotus-like face. So just think about these descriptions. So there's more, it goes on. Next week we'll jump in, we'll tell a few more details, right? But just think a lot of detail has been given, right? And so this is food for our contemplation, food for our visualization or imagination. We can visualize her. It's being described so visually, so elaborately, that the description itself is a visualization. We can see, it's like, oh, she appeared, the goddess appeared, but now it's being described what she's wearing, what's her face like, what jewelry she's wearing, what bracelets and necklaces, and everything is being described, right, poetically and beautifully, right? So it's being described very vividly and very visually, right? So we know exactly, right? But this is also kind of the food for a Dhyan mantra, as we described last week, right? This is for, if you want to visualize her, you can also take these details and visualize. More details will come, but you can visualize the goddess Bhuvaneshwari, visualize the goddess Kali, visualize the goddess Lakshmi, I worship Lakshmi for wealth and happiness, prosperity, or like that. But what does it mean to worship? How do you see her? Right? She's very distinct. She has iconographic details. Meditating on those details have tremendous meaning, have an effect on consciousness, and it's full of mythology and symbology and culture and poetics and esoteric occult details of chakras and nadis. All this stuff is there. And by meditating upon this is rotating in the mind. You're contemplating not just an image of the goddess, not just a picture. The deeper and deeper and deeper nature of the goddess is being contemplated. One of the tricks, I can't say tricks, but one of the ways to meditate on a god or goddess, right? Swami Shivananda gives, I learned this from Swami Shivananda's writings, right? Is that you can, if you have a picture of her, for instance, if you have a photograph of her, you can do this, or a photograph of the deity, you look at the deity, right, as long as you can without blinking. Right, it's called trataka, right? And when you can no longer hold the image, or you can't, then you close your eyes. When you stare at something and you close your eyes, there's a shadow image that's in your mind. You can kind of, for a second, you can still kind of see it, to try to see that shadow image and visualize it. And and try to think of all the details, try to hold all those details. And when it begins to loosen again, when you begin to lose it, again, open your eyes and look at the image. And again, when you get the image, close your eyes and try to visualize with all details. And when you lose it, again, open your eyes and see the image. This is one way that you can visualize or meditate upon the image of the deity. If you have an image, a statue, murti, or a poster, or a picture, or a photograph of the deity or a saint like that, it's easy to do. You can also just do it mentally without a picture. When you think, there's another process mentioned in the scripture. You start on the left, usually you start at the left foot of the deity, and you see left toe, left toes, left foot, left ankle, left calf, left knee, left thigh, left hip, then up left chest and breast, left arm, and then you go the arm, and then up to the face, and then down the right side. So this way of rotating, right, kind of clockwise, in a certain like this, right, up, and then you go up. All the details you visualize in detail, and then when you've gone, then try to hold the whole image as long as you can. And when you lose it, then again meditate on her feet, on her ankle, go up and back down, and try the whole. And when you're visualizing the pictures, another way, if you have a picture, an image, you can do that also. Meditate on her feet, on her legs, and go up and go back down, right? And you see, when we do arati, we're doing that. We start, actually, if you maybe I've noticed, Pujari is counting, right? We take the lamp, and we do 4. Arati is showing, and now we have very beautifully lit up altar, right, with latest LED lights, dimmable switches, and everything to get it just right, and the light becomes symbolic. But in a traditional temple, the inner shrine is really dark. It only has a few ghee lamps, right? And you look inside from the outside, trying to look at the deity, you can barely see it, and almost flickering in 1 or 2 ghee lamps. But during arati, the lamp is brought, and it's waved at the deity's feet. And when it's waved at the deity's feet, you see the deity's feet. And then it's brought up to the deity's body, and you see the deity's heart and body. And then it's brought up to the face, and you see the deity's face. And then so we do that. We actually, you may have noticed, we do 4 times at the feet, and we do 3 times at the heart, and we do 3 times at the head, and then we do 7 times around the body. There's a science to that given in the scriptures, how we do arati, right? But you think about it, the lamp goes up the left side, and then back down the right side, and up the left side, and back down the right side. And so you can imagine in a dark temple, right, you're literally being guided through the arati lamp, how to meditate and visualize a deity, right? And so if your deity in a poster, you can meditate as it is. If you have a visual description like this in the scripture, Dhyan Mantra, as described, she has 4, like imagine Kali, she has 4 arms. Where you see in this arm, she has in her lower left arm, she has a severed head, or in lower right arm, she has she's giving boons, and she has these poses, and then you can go through it this way, or try to hold the whole thing. So those details are given a ways to rotate the mind and try to hold it. And actually, to be able to hold the deity in the mind is actually really hard. Maybe you've noticed this, right? You know, I can visualize. I mean, sometimes we can't stop our mind from visualizing any stupid thing, right? And whatever we've seen on TV and what we've seen or like this. But to visualize a divine being is not easy, right? Because the language is not, sometimes it's not realistic. It's stylized, it's iconographic, it's meaningful, right? But it's also subtle and divine and full of meaning. And only a subtle mind can contemplate, can hold this form. And so Sri Ramakrishna, a very common, you see in the gospel and the Lila Prasanga, the great master, disciples, this is a common, people go to the guru, go to Sri Ramakrishna and says, Master Thakur, I'm having a hard time when I close my eyes, I can't visualize the deity, my Ishta, right? Sometime I see the feet, sometime, but I can't see the face clearly. So when I see the face, I can't hold the whole form. You know, it's like, this is because this is the practice. They're trying to hold and visualize the deity in their heart or in their mind's eye, you know, and they can't hold it, right? It's very hard. And Sri Ramakrishna gives instruction, or maybe some instruction how to do it. And there is a great, the thing happened on 1st January, the Kalpaturu day, when Sri Ramakrishna came down from his sickbed and blessed all the gathering of devotees, and he was going around blessing, granting the cherished spiritual experiences that the different disciples were holding in their heart. Many of you know this scene in Sri Ramakrishna's life. We celebrate every January 1st when it happened, Kalpaturu day. But the story is given in the Lila Prasanga, in Sri Ramakrishna, the great master, Sri Ramakrishna's divine play has been translated. One of the disciples, I'm forgetting his name, told the writer, the author, Swami Bhajanananda, his own experience. He says he was struggling. He could never see the deity fully, right? But as a result of the touch of Sri Ramakrishna that day, one of his boons that he got is that when he closed his eye, when he closed his eyes to meditate, he fully saw the deity in full detail, right? So this is, and in a lot of devotional literature, you see japa and meditation. Maybe you've seen it. One should practice japa and meditation. We get it all mixed up with all kinds of schools of thought and all kinds of school of practice. So japa is one thing and meditation is something different. Very often the term japa means chanting the Lord's name, and meditation is visualizing the deity whose name you're chanting, right? So the visualization, the contemplation, the imagining or visualizing the deity is the form of meditation. You meditate upon the nama and rupa, the name of the deity and the form of the deity, right? So these verses are describing a beautiful revelation of the goddess, right? And we're giving so many details, like to think of what's God like, what does she look like? We have something to think about. This is, of course, Ma's infinite, and she's 10,000 suns, 10,000 moons, and all that, right? But when she appears in the form that is that of exquisite beauty and exquisite content for contemplation. Each aspect can be meditated on, can contemplated, thought about, visualized, right? Swami Chaitanya has a chapter in his book, See God with Open Eyes. I think it's that book, where he describes meditating on Sri Ramakrishna's form. Because sometimes he'll just meditate, he meditates on his collarbone here, right? And he knows so many details about his collarbone. He can spend 20 minutes just contemplating his collarbone, or contemplating his beard, or contemplating his smile, right? But the more you read, the more you study, the more meaning these, we look at Sri Ramakrishna, oh, Jai Sri Ramakrishna, we bow and move on, right? If need be, that could be in so much detail of contemplation. Could be all these details in this text are food content for meditation, right? These are revelations. This is, as we take the text seriously, this is the overflowing graceful revelations of the gods, and through them, and to the sages and the text and the author, to us also. We can also see the Devi this way. All right, Jai Ma, thank you for your kind attention. Shri Guru Maharaji ki jai, Mahamai ki jai, Swamiji Maharaji ki jai, Bhuvaneshwari Devi ki jai, Ma Dakshineshwari, Bhavatarini, Dakshinakali ki jai. Just a quick note, tomorrow is Purnima, a very auspicious, it's called Rakhi Purnima. This is when maybe people, traditionists, or especially for women, to tie bracelets on their brother or people they consider like brothers' wrists. but it's become tying bracelets on everybody's wrist. It's a way of showing affection and protection, and we're all take care of each other. Right. It's also the day when traditionally many families, according to family, people's sacred threads are changed, special mantras, Gayatri is increased. Right. It's also Hayagriva Jayanti, the esoteric and beautiful fourth incarnation of the Lord. Hayagriva, his appearance, he appeared on this giant, on this Purnima. So it's a very it's also Swami Nirmalananda, Sri Ramakrishna's disciple. Swami Nirmalananda's birthday, Jayanti day. That's tomorrow, so don't miss it. A good day for exercise, especially if you chant Gayatri. A very good day for
Niranjanananda.
Yes, I mean Niranjanananda Jayanti. Thank you. Especially if you chant Gayatri, it's a good day to chant extra Gayatri. And actually, especially and Hayagriva, he's a source of so much. He is the source of most esoteric tantric knowledge is considered to come from Hayagriva. Sahasranam is revealed by Hayagriva. So very likely that if you have a mantra of some sort, as per some tradition, it probably came through Hayagriva. So he's the very divine and he considered an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, right? But in the Devi Bhagavatam also it shows it's also Devi. There's lots of Leela of Devi and Hayagriva also. So that's tomorrow. Any questions or comments? Sorry, we got cut off a few times. Om Om Om. Om.
And today, happy birthday, Edie.
Happy birthday, Edie.
Thank you. Thank you for all the blessings and the good wishes.
Om Om Om. Jaima Anandaji, Jaima. So no questions, no comments, no challenges. This is good. Either it's really good or very bad. I'm not quite sure if I've created. Yeah. Mama. All right then. Let it be. Good night, everyone. Next week, again, there's a chance we may be traveling next week, but I think we'll be able to. My goal is to be able to wherever we are. We may be in Northern California next week. We'll record from. I think if there's a problem, I'll let you know ahead of time. But I'll try to. I think I'm caught up in my notes that I can pull it off. I hope. Hopefully, we'll see. And if we have good internet connection, I'm probably better than we had tonight. I'll see what's going on tonight. All right, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Have a good trip then.
Giri, Jai Ma, Durga Dasi, Jai Ma. And son. Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Anandaji, Jai Ma. Om Krishna Chaitra, Makoto, Alex. Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Jai Jai Guru.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
Om Namo Narayana.
Om Narayana.